9 reasons older man should not live close to your children. As men age and enter their senior years, many face decisions that involve significant lifestyle changes. One such decision revolves around living arrangements, particularly whether they should live close to their adult children. For many older men, the appeal of residing near family is strong, especially when faced with concerns about health, loneliness, or a desire to maintain close connections with their children and grandchildren. However, while living in close proximity to one's children may seem ideal on the surface, it comes with a host of challenges that can impact both the older man and his family. In this essay, we will explore 9 critical reasons why older men should reconsider living too close to their children. These reasons touch on personal independence, family dynamics, generational differences, financial concerns, and the overall quality of life. By examining these factors, older men and their families can make more informed decisions about their living arrangements, preserving relationships and well-being. 1. Preservation of independence. One of the most important aspects of aging is the ability to maintain a sense of independence. Older men, particularly those who have spent much of their lives as providers and decision-makers, often find great value in continuing to live autonomously. The act of making decisions for oneself, whether it involves daily routines, financial matters, or social interactions, reinforces a sense of control and dignity. When an older man lives too close to his children, there is a risk that this independence will be unintentionally eroded. For example, consider the case of John, a retired 70-year-old widower. After his wife passed away, John's daughter suggested that he move into the house next door so that they could be close to each other. At first, this seemed like a comforting arrangement, providing John with the security of having family nearby, while allowing his daughter to check in on him regularly. However, as time went on, John found himself relying more and more on his daughter for small tasks, picking up groceries, driving him to medical appointments, and even handling household repairs. What began as occasional assistance became routine, and John soon realized that his sense of independence was slipping away. This gradual shift can be particularly difficult for older men to accept, as it signals a reversal of roles. For decades, John had been the one his family turned to for support and decision-making. Now, he was dependent on his daughter for basic tasks, which made him feel less capable. Even though John was physically and mentally able to handle many of these tasks on his own, the close proximity to his daughter created a dynamic where she felt compelled to help, and he found it easier to let her take over. The loss of independence is not just a matter of practical concerns. It affects an older man's sense of identity and self-worth. Living independently is a way for older men to continue asserting control over their lives, something that becomes more important as they age. When that independence is compromised, it can lead to feelings of helplessness, frustration, and even depression. 2. Potential strain on relationships. While living near family may seem like a way to strengthen bonds, it can also create tension, particularly between older men and their adult children. When families live apart, there are natural boundaries that help preserve the quality of relationships. However, when an older man moves too close to his children, these boundaries can become blurred. The frequency of interaction may increase to the point where it no longer feels special or enjoyable, but rather obligatory and at times intrusive. Henry, a 65-year-old retired factory worker, experienced this firsthand. After retiring, Henry moved into a house just 2 blocks away from his son and daughter-in-law, with the hope of spending more time with his grandchildren. Initially, this arrangement worked well, and Henry enjoyed being part of his grandchildren's daily lives. However, over time, the proximity led to frequent, sometimes daily, interactions that started to feel like a burden rather than a pleasure. His son and daughter-in-law began to expect him to babysit regularly, even when it wasn't convenient for Henry. On the other hand, Henry felt obligated to visit his family nearly every day, even when he would have preferred time to himself. The constant proximity created tension that strained their relationship. Henry began to feel resentful of the unspoken expectations, while his son and daughter-in-law felt that Henry was withdrawing from family life. What should have been a close and supportive relationship became a source of stress and frustration. If Henry had lived further away, they might have maintained healthier boundaries, allowing them to enjoy their time together without feeling overwhelmed. Close living arrangements can sometimes blur the lines between helping out and imposing. Older men may feel like they are being taken for granted, while their children might not even realize the strain they are causing. Maintaining a healthy distance allows both parties to preserve their individual lives while still cherishing time together. 3. Generational differences and conflicts. Generational gaps can be a source of pride, with older generations passing down wisdom and life experience to their children. However, these same differences can also lead to conflict, particularly when there is constant interaction. Older men and their children may have differing views on a wide range of topics, from parenting styles to financial priorities to political and social issues. When these differences are encountered too frequently, they can create friction that undermines family harmony. Consider Robert, an 80-year-old retired school teacher who moved closer to his son's family after his wife's death. Robert's son and daughter-in-law adhered to a modern, hands-off parenting style that emphasized giving their children independence and minimal discipline. Robert, on the other hand, believed in more traditional, stricter methods of child rearing, having raised his own children in a different era. As Robert spent more time with his grandchildren, he found it difficult to bite his tongue when he disagreed with his son's approach. Over time, Robert's well-meaning advice turned into unsolicited criticism, leading to arguments between him and his son. Robert's son began to feel that his father was overstepping his boundaries, while Robert felt disrespected and undervalued. The generational gap that had always existed between them became more pronounced with constant exposure, leading to a rift in their relationship. While it is natural for parents and children to have differing views, living in close proximity can make it harder to manage these differences with grace and patience. By maintaining physical distance, older men and their children can avoid daily conflicts and allow for more thoughtful, meaningful discussions when they do spend time together. 4. Loss of personal space. Personal space is a fundamental aspect of emotional well-being, particularly for older adults who may need more quiet time to reflect, relax, and recharge. As men age, they often value the peace and solitude that comes with retirement and the ability to live life at their own pace. However, living close to one's children, especially children who have young families of their own, can disrupt this peace and lead to feelings of being overwhelmed or intruded upon. James, a 68-year-old widower, decided to move into a home near his son and daughter-in-law after his wife passed away. He imagined that being close to family would provide comfort, especially during the lonely evenings. However, James quickly discovered that living so close to his son's family meant that his home was rarely quiet. His son had 3 young children, and their frequent visits, often unannounced, turned James's tranquil retirement into a whirlwind of noise and activity. While James loved his grandchildren dearly, the constant presence of energetic toddlers and busy family life left him feeling drained. His once peaceful evenings were now filled with the sounds of children running around, and he found it difficult to maintain his own routine. James began to resent the lack of personal space, even though he knew his family's intentions were good. Older men often need time to themselves to pursue hobbies, read, or simply enjoy the quiet. Living too close to family can make it difficult to carve out this personal time, leading to feelings of frustration or burnout. For men who value their space and solitude, it is crucial to set boundaries that protect their need for peace and quiet. 5. Role reversal, from parent to dependent. For much of their lives, men are accustomed to being providers and caretakers within their families. As they age, however, there is a natural shift from being the caregiver to becoming the one who may need care. While this role reversal is a normal part of aging, it can be particularly challenging for older men who live close to their children. In many cases, living nearby accelerates this transition, often before the older man is ready to embrace it. Tom, a retired engineer in his 70s, experienced this shift after moving into a house near his daughter, following the death of his wife. Although Tom was still in relatively good health, his daughter began to take on more of a caretaker role, managing his medical appointments, handling his finances, and even cooking meals for him. While Tom appreciated his daughter's help, he struggled with the idea of being taken care of, especially when he still felt capable of managing these tasks on his own. The role reversal left Tom feeling less like the strong, independent man he had always been, and more like a burden to his daughter. This shift in dynamics can be difficult for many older men to accept, as it challenges their sense of masculinity and identity. By living further away from their children, older men can retain a greater degree of control over their lives and postpone the inevitable role reversal until it is truly necessary. 6. Increased interference in children's lives. Just as living close to children can lead to older men feeling dependent, it can also create the opposite problem: older men becoming too involved in their children's lives. While this involvement often comes from a place of love and concern, it can be overwhelming for adult children who are trying to establish their own families and routines. Frequent, unsolicited advice or opinions from an older father can strain the relationship and lead to feelings of resentment. Charles, a retired lawyer, moved into an apartment near his daughter and her family with the hope of being more involved in their lives. However, as time went on, Charles found it difficult to resist offering advice on nearly every aspect of his daughter's life, from how she should raise her children to how she should manage her finances. Although his intentions were good, Charles's constant input began to feel overbearing to his daughter, who felt that her father was trying to control her life. This dynamic is not uncommon when older men live close to their children. The proximity makes it easier for them to become too involved, sometimes without realizing that they are overstepping boundaries. While occasional advice is welcome, frequent interference can damage the parent-child relationship. By living at a greater distance, older men can maintain a healthy level of involvement in their children's lives without becoming overbearing. 7. Burden on the children. While the idea of living close to one's children may seem like a way to strengthen family bonds, it can unintentionally place a burden on the children. Adult children who live near their aging parents often feel an unspoken obligation to take care of them, even when their parents don't explicitly ask for help. This sense of duty can be especially challenging for children who are already balancing their own careers, families, and responsibilities. David, a 60-year-old retired firefighter, decided to move into a small house near his son after his wife passed away. Although David was in relatively good health, his son felt compelled to check in on him regularly, help with household chores, and even manage some of David's financial affairs. This added responsibility became overwhelming for David's son, who was already juggling a demanding job and raising young children. While David never intended to be a burden, his close proximity made it difficult for his son to maintain his own boundaries and focus on his own family. This sense of obligation can create tension within families, especially when the older parent is still capable of taking care of themselves. Children may feel guilty for not doing enough, while parents may feel guilty for being a source of stress. Living further apart allows both parties to maintain their independence while still providing support when it is truly needed. 8. Financial strain. The financial implications of living close to one's children can also be a source of concern. While older men may not require financial assistance initially, there is always the possibility that their health or financial situation will change over time. In some cases, children may feel pressured to provide financial support for their aging parents, especially if they live nearby and see their parents struggling. This can create a significant strain on the children's own finances, particularly if they are raising families or saving for their own retirement. Roger, a retired accountant, moved closer to his daughter after experiencing a series of health problems. Although Roger had saved for retirement, the cost of his medical bills began to add up, and he found himself dipping into his savings to cover expenses. His daughter, feeling responsible for her father's well-being, began contributing to his healthcare costs. While she was happy to help, the financial strain started to affect her own family's budget, leading to stress and tension. This type of financial burden can be difficult to manage, especially when it arises unexpectedly. By living further away from their children, older men can reduce the likelihood that their children will feel obligated to provide financial support, allowing both parties to maintain their financial independence. 9. Difficulty in maintaining friendships. As men age, their social networks often become smaller, particularly after retirement. For many older men, friendships with peers are an essential source of companionship and emotional support. However, moving close to one's children can sometimes lead to isolation from these important social connections, particularly if the move involves relocating to a new area, where the older man does not have an established social circle. Richard, a 75-year-old widower, moved closer to his daughter after his wife passed away. While he enjoyed spending time with his family, he found that he missed his weekly coffee meetups with old friends. The distance between his new home and his old neighborhood made it difficult to maintain these friendships, and over time, Richard began to feel lonely despite being surrounded by family. Maintaining friendships in later life is crucial for emotional well-being, and older men who move away from their social networks may find it difficult to rebuild those connections in a new environment. Living further away from family can encourage older men to stay engaged with their own peer groups and maintain the friendships that provide them with a sense of belonging and support. While the idea of living close to one's children may seem appealing for older men, it is essential to consider the potential drawbacks. From the erosion of independence to the strain on relationships, financial pressures, and the loss of personal space, there are numerous reasons why older men may want to reconsider such a decision. By maintaining a healthy distance from their children, older men can preserve their independence, protect their relationships, and maintain a higher quality of life in their later years. Ultimately, each family must make the decision that best suits their unique circumstances, but it is important to weigh the emotional, social, and financial costs of living too close to one's children.